This is Decarbonize the World with Frank Deline, solving the climate crisis while increasing profits in your business. Here's Frank.
Welcome back to my conversation with Ramsay Siegal, a partner at Earthshot Ventures, an early-stage venture fund investing in entrepreneurs solving the toughest climate challenges. Ramsay, there are dozens and dozens of climate-focused VC funds out there. How big an impact will venture capital have in reversing climate change?
I think venture capital is one good tool to reverse climate change and to support companies and inventors, entrepreneurs who are coming up with technologies that don't exist yet. However, I don't believe it's the only solution for climate action. I think it's a combination of policy, customers voting with their feet, and large corporations taking responsibilities for their own emissions and mitigating them and reducing them as quickly as possible. So if you look at the owners of the Superfund sites across the United States, nearly all of them are owned by corporations themselves. And the same is probably true for point source emissions for manufacturing and other heavy industry type applications. So I think it's a combination of top down, coming from national policy and corporations taking action, and then bottom up being local policy and people voting with their feet, and then entrepreneurs creating new inventions that enable customers on every side of the equation to decarbonize themselves.
Right. One of the spaces you've been involved with is electrical grids. I understand that your graduate research thesis was on smart grid planning and communication. Mm-hmm. For those in the audience who may not know, explain a little bit more about smart grids and communications. This industry seems to be an area that can be an opportunity for venture capital, right?
Definitely. So the utility grid is commonly referred to as man's largest machine. So they're large networks of poles and wires that everyone is familiar with centralized generation that is distributed across a network. And until recently, all of that was run in an analog fashion where the utility calculates the demand forecast and produces that amount of electricity every day and then distributes it to the end user. And metering specifically was analog, which was like a little wheel spinning in your meter box. And then with the invention of digital communication and cell phone networks and all of the things that have empowered all of our devices, the same trend is happening for utilities where they can provide digital reading right on your home or commercial building. And that reads real time and enables the customer to have more insight into how their behavior is leading to their utility bill. It also provides the opportunity for the utility to manage their network in real time and creates essentially a very sophisticated data underlayer of grid operations so that demand forecasting and load shedding, remote connect, disconnect, and other functionality can take place through a centralized IT system. So it's very exciting. Yeah.
I know the fund has been around a little over a year, but are there any success stories you're able to share already?
Definitely. So we invest in pre-seed to Series B companies, and for some of them, first institutional capital in the door and building an early team and product, and others are further along their commercialization journey. So one that I can highlight is called Lilac Solutions, and it is founded by a PhD founder who created a technology which is essentially a little bead that's very good at attracting lithium. And many people believe that lithium is mined, and it actually exists in saltwater brine. It's a naturally occurring substance in saltwater brine in different concentrations throughout the world. So the beads that Lilac Solutions creates is held in a silo, and rather than creating an evaporation pond and destroying the environment in the process and the cost of sort of scraping the salt and mud and lithium from the surface, the saltwater brine can wash over this silo and return back into the earth in a natural way, and the lithium is just attracted to the beads. So we believe that this will create a a step change in the way that lithium is harvested globally. They have quite a few pilot plants that they have created in North America, and they're expanding into Argentina as well, where the resources are promising down there. And so our hope is that this technology will reduce the cost of lithium and then therefore make electric vehicles and other sort of storage offerings more affordable over time.
Great. With so much talk about inflation and recession these days, how does that affect what you're doing?
Yeah, I think that there's a great article in Climate Tech VC on this particular topic. And they found that there is 94 billion of new private climate assets under management across 132 VCs that have emerged this year. In a conservative sense, there's about 37 billion of investable dry powder ready to deploy. So there's a longer article that can be relished around the topic. But I think that what we're observing anecdotally in our work is that there is still a lot of support and a lot of checks being written and a lot of money on the table for climate tech entrepreneurs, and rounds are still competitive. The best opportunities are going quickly, whereas other aspects of the economy and other aspects of venture capital specifically are slowing down a little bit. One area where we are seeing an impact is on runway. So for companies that are, watching the news and sort of aware of what the forecasts look like, slowing down spending a little bit and extending runway and perhaps raising a bridge round or another round to sort of bolster for this time ahead is the fiscally responsible thing to do. And we're noticing most companies have already gone through that process.
You talked about all the money that was being invested globally in climate change related technology. And I also read that close to $2 billion went to firms in India. In the global market, what countries have you seen become more aggressive in this space?
So our focus is North America primarily. We do have investments outside of the US, mainly in Europe. But we find that, one of the value adds for partnering with Earthshot Ventures is commercial connections and introductions, and we have those primarily in North America. With that said, there's activity across the globe. There's a lot happening in Australia and Asia Pacific markets. Europe is more progressive from a policy standpoint in many ways, and so we're seeing a lot of activity there. Both on the LP side and the venture fund side.
I'm sure you know that the U.S. is a bit polarized, that's probably an understatement, when it comes to the opinion on climate change. Recently, we've seen the U.S. go from a net exporter of fossil fuels to an importer, pipelines closed, oil wells on federal lands closed, with prices going through the roof, impacting the cost of everything. How will governmental or societal strife affect the green tech companies you work with?
Yeah. Well, I think it's good for founders to be aware of the macro trends that are happening. And you certainly highlight one of them, which is that addressing climate and environmental conservation has become polarized, which is unfortunate. However, most things have become polarized, so it's not a unique problem to have. And so one way that companies have worked around it is that rather than leading in the sales pitch with, you're going to save the planet with this technology, it's a climate tech solution, leading with, this is something that the CFO can fall in love with. This will save you money. The ROI is a very short time frame, et cetera. So that no matter what, if it's a good financial opportunity and it can improve operations, then we find that it's less polarizing. So I think it's good for founders to have a couple different scripts in the early days that they test with customers and see which ones are more successful than others. But anecdotally, I think if it's positioned as a good financial opportunity for a customer, then the polarization is sort of less important.
Lastly, congratulations on receiving the DOE's Clean Energy Education and Empowerment Award.
Thank you.
What did it mean to be in such a successful group of women?
Oh, it was wonderful. So I went to Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago to celebrate the C3E award and was astounded by all the leaders in the room. There were about 150 women there at every stage of their career. So women that were, still PhDs and thinking about joining the workforce or starting their own companies, all the way to leaders within DOE that have been in the industry for 35 or 40 years. And so it was really inspiring and also has me thinking about how we can ladder up more people into this industry. It's something that has brought me so much joy, and I literally jump out of bed every day to get to work because I love it so much. And it's a combination of interesting and intellectually stimulating, but also very important for the world that we're going to be leaving our children. So it's had me thinking about different ways that we can ladder more people up into the industry and continue to support networks, not just for women, but all sorts of people that are interested in contributing. So I was just incredibly honored and fired up to give back.
Great. Thank you for being on our podcast, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. She is Ramsay Siegal from Earthshot Ventures, and you can find out more about her work at earthshot.vc. And that's it for another episode of Decarbonizing the World. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I'd love if you left me a review so more folks like yourself can discover the show. Until next time, take care.
This has been Decarbonize the World with Frank Deline. To connect with Frank and to learn more about clean energy, reducing fossil fuels, and increasing profits, go to frankdeline.com. Decarbonize the World is a production of Advantage Audio.